You go up to Fairchild, and I'm sure many of you know or have heard of, if you haven't been there, they have the survival school, and they teach you how to live in the jungle, how to, survive, and they put you in a simulated environment like being a POW and give you some hints and tips of what you can and cannot say. While we were up at school, there's probably about 60 to 70 crew members up there from all different airplanes. 5 of us were all going to the same place, to the RF-101s. And we were told right after graduation ceremony was over with, they said, all 5 of you, you're not supposed to go anywhere because all the RF-101s are going back home. They're not using them anymore. Your new assignments will come up within a day or two. Well, we all went to the bar at the Fairchild Club and got drunk for the next 2 days, not knowing what we were going to get. I was very lucky. When I got done and everything said, come on, it's not advancing. I F4, and I got my F4, and I was going to go to training at Davis-Monthan for about a little over 6 months. I was very lucky to have my instructor was Lieutenant Colonel Bob Pardo. And I see someone earlier when I came on here mentioned the name. I'm sure some of you have heard about Colonel Pardo or didn't. When he was flying me as my instructor, I was a young captain, and he was a lieutenant colonel, just come back from Vietnam. I didn't know much about him, but I knew this gentleman was always thinking outside the box. Everything we did in the F4, everything he taught me, there was a little bit different from what the syllabus said you're going to be doing. And I finally figured it out why when I started hearing about him. Back in March of '67, Pardo was a wingman, and his lead were up in Hanoi, and they took some very severe hits with AAA, and to the point where the lead was down to 1 engine and leaking fuel profusely. Pardo had also some damage to his airplane, and he had said, we're going to have to bail out. His leader did. And Pardo said, no, let's not do that. He said, I'm going to get up behind you. I want you to lower the tail hook. And you can see the tail hook on the F4 is very massive. It's like the Navy's version to take the hook on the carriers. So he lowered the tail hook. And what he did was he took his F4 and took this oval piece of glass right in front of the pilot's eyes, which is a very strengthened piece of glass. And he took the hook and put it right at the crotch here at the base of the radome and the window, and he gave him a push. It's called Pardo's push. Here's an artist rendition of what he did. This guy now has no engines when they were finally in this configuration, 0 thrust over here. He had to shut the 1 remaining engine down. He's dripping fuel, leaking it like a sieve, so getting on fuel. Pardo eventually was down to 1 engine himself, going in and out of burner to push him. He said, we're not going to bail out. We're going to eventually bail out, but it's not going to be over North Vietnam. So he pushed him in over to Laos, and they started coming down in what we call a toboggan. So you're just coming down at a slow rate, maybe 400 to 500 feet a minute, rather than 5,000 or 6,000. So with the toboggan, they successfully ejected and were picked up in Laos. Here's a picture of Texas Johnny. That was his backseater, and you can see a lot of champagne after they got picked up. He was always thinking outside the law of probabilities. And when I had him for instructor, I just knew he was a little bit different. He actually, a lot of people put him in for medals and awards and decks, and they were all rejected by the bean counters in the Pentagon. And the answer was basically, how do you dare risk 2 airplanes to do this stupid maneuver, which every pilot thought was a great maneuver, except for the bean counters. So Pardo never got any accolades from him. How about, I want to say 1978, 79, maybe in there. Pardo was someone actually looked over the whole Pardos push incident, and they went ahead and gave him a lot of medals at the Pentagon, which I thought was finally justice. My assignment was to UDORN, the Triple Nickel Squadron, flying the F-4Ds. I did it for 1 year, 71 to 72. Just to give you an idea of the layout of the land here, this is Thailand, and these are all the bases that we had in here. We had UDORN, which is we're going to be at here for a while. This is NKP, Ubon, Karat, Tokale, Bangkok, and Utapao down here. So this is basically all the fighters were here, all around. You can see the proximity to Laos. Here's the DMZ right in here with the dotted lines. This is all North Vietnam, and this would be South Vietnam. So you can see, being at UDORN, Vientiane being the capital of Laos, we're real close on the border up here. So we didn't take much gas. All the fighters coming down here generally had to take a token amount of gas before we went up in the north. Before you go, after you leave your training, like I did, your class gets split up and you get on a plane and you go to the Philippines, and you got to go to jungle survival now at Philippines. This is 3 of my compadres just talking about how short, they put their fingers up to say how short they are, even though they still have a full year to go. So that's where your jungle school's at. And that's to teach you how to survive in the jungle environment if you get shot down in Vietnam. This is where I went to. It's a place called UDORN. And you can see here, it's all, there was hardly any paved roads back in that time. This is, we're talking 1972, all red clay dust. The only hard road was the entrance into UDORN Royal Thai Air Force Base. Here's a shot. This over this side, this is where we live, like what we call the cantonment, and this is the flight line side over here. These were all where the F4s were. Had a nice arch around here for all the squadrons. Triple Nickel Squadron was right over here. I want you to notice this little other taxiway down here at the far end. What that is, another unit was down there, and it was a unit was called the Air America. And we know Air America were the people who were civilians, and they flew up into Laos mostly, doing resupplying and also supporting the war up in Laos. So this is where the Air America guys flew out of. There's their wings. There's a few of them there, and you can see they're teaching some of the Laos how to teach and fly the DC-3 here. This is one of their Lima sites up in Laos that the Air America guys fly into. Very remote, very no lighting on them, very bare. Some of them are just dirt. This one happens to be hard surface. But they had these Lima sites where they were flying out of. Now we're switching gears a little bit. Here's the F4. That's one that's completely clean. To find a clean F4, you don't see it very often. With a clean configuration, I think it sort of gets over to right up close to Mach 2 or Mach 2.1, not much more than that. This is the strip lighting. There's one here, there's a strip lighting here, and one here. For night flying, you turn all your lights off. They're flashing or too bright for your eyes, and you turn on your strip lighting. And your strip lighting on both sides allows you to get a reference so you can fly in formation with the other airplanes at night. This one happens to be a tail of OY, which is the Triple Nickel Squadron I was in. This one belongs to the foundation here in the United States, refurbishes the airplane, and this is one of it taxiing out. This is all refurbished. There's another picture of it, Triple Nickel. Cockpit, it looks a little busy, but it's not too bad once you get used to it. Basically, all your flight instruments are right here. You can see the stick down low. All your engine instruments are over here. And here's all your missiles, and all your bomb configuration was down here between the legs. Just a picture there of some 750s coming off the rack on a bombing. It looks like about a 40 or 30 degree dive angle. Pull them off. Udorn, we were at, when the monsoon season came in, it gave the North Vietnamese a big leg of being able to move things from Hanoi down to South Vietnam or South, so they reinforced their troops. So when the monsoon season came on, there wasn't much air-to-ground bombing. They came up with this, what they call a Loran. It's a TOW, we called it a TOW antenna, about 10 or 15 airplanes were modified with it. What it allowed you to do, you'd take this lead, this airplane would be the lead, and you'd have 3 wingmen on you, 2 on one side and 1 on the other. And when each airplane, there's one taxiing out, would be loaded up with these cluster bombs, the CBUs they call them. Inside these CBUs, this is a CBU 52, you can see the seam going down it. They all have a seam. It's a radar altimeter in the nose of each one of them, and it's preset by the munitions people. Let's say it's set for 2,000 feet, each one of them. So as you pickle these off, they go down like a bomb. They have the characteristics of a bomb with fins. At 2,000 feet, is it whatever it's registered in the radar, this clamshell then splits right here down the middle, and 220 baseball size submunitions come floating on out. And it really is a big denial area munition, which we use during the monsoon system. Here's some of the results. You can see some of these wide areas because once those things open up, those little baseballs they just sort of go out all over the place. They have little fins on them to spin, and they go ahead and explode. So it's a big area denial, and that's what we were doing, trying to deny them coming down the Ho Chi Minh Trail to reinforce their guys. And there's, you can see some more. Again, that's the 52 munition going off. I'm not going to get into that. When we first time I was at Udorn, they started talking about guided bombing. We didn't know anything about it. We started getting these crude laser beam attachments that go onto the bombs, and we were using FACS up in the Laos and in the Ho Chi Minh Trail. FACS would be in their O2s or O1s with a laser beam, someone with the laser beam while the pilot was flying, and he would hold a beam on a tank or on troops, and this laser head would then seek it and then move the bomb accordingly with the fins in the back. Very, very crude. The original, towards the end of the Vietnam War, they were used more and more. This is the office, the triple nickel. These are the front doors for it right here. Here's your mailboxes, and this is your duty desk right here in front. This is our briefing room. It's for the triple nickel. It's where you had all your mission briefings. This is my office. You can see right out here. It's got the mailboxes, so it's right outside the front door. I was a scheduler after a while. This is where I did all the scheduling in here for the missions. This is a mural inside the triple nickel. You can see how big, that's a huge wall. Here's a human being over here sitting down at a table. This is one of the many, many murals that people did over the years. This is a depiction of going up over the Red River for some air-to-air combat. This is in our squadron. Also, in each of these stars represent a MiG kill. This is our PE crew, or the personal equipment. There's your 38 revolver. You had a choice of a 38 or a 45, whichever one was your, I wanted a 38. I tried a 45 a couple of times, and I thought I was going to lose it out of my hand. So I took 38s. That's where they put all your survival gear and your seat kit for your ejection. There's your helmets, sea suits, and your vest all down in there. This is in our outside of our duty desk. It had each one of these stars represents a MiG kill. I want you to notice one thing. Look at these here: 67, 67, 67. Over here in this bottom row, it says March of 68. What's the next date here? 21 Feb of 72. Now you're going to ask what happened from 68 to 22. And that's a pretty big gap. What the rules of engagement were between these years were the stupidest rule engagements you've ever heard in your life. We were not, when I was there for my year, we were not allowed to fire at any MiGs until we had a visual contact with them, visual contact, which gave them a big idea. Now, all our AIM 7s, which are radar guided, were pretty much useless. You'd have to get into an AIM 9 where you get a fur ball going with them. And that's why the rules of engagement were stupid, really stupid. And we complained a lot about it when I first got there, and a lot of other people did about, hey, why do we have to have a visual on them? And they said that, well, that's the way they want to do it up the chain of command. So we complained enough, and they went to extraordinary means to get something where we could see them. They came out with this, what they call TIZIO, Target Identification System, electro-optical, and they put it on the left wing of the F4s, and the back seater, he has like a television screen, and he's got magnification powers. It's like having a pair of binoculars, and he can see way out. And if he could identify it as a MiG 17, 19, or 21, we were then allowed to hose one off. And this was a big help in finding out the bad guys and being able to shoot. Just some of the missiles. There's the AIM 7 Sparrow at the very top. These are radar guided missiles underneath the wings. The radar guided missiles, very good radar, air to air, air to ground. This is the AIM 9E. This is a heat seeker. This is one of the best. I got the most kills with when you get into the fur ball, the dogfight. And these were the three airplanes we're basically going after: the 17, the 19, and the MiG-21. There was a long dry spell, and that was 4 years of not getting any MiG. And finally, our squadron commander, his name is Joe Kittinger, greatest squadron commander I've ever had. And Joe and I are good friends today. He finally got a MiG. And that star you saw in I can't remember the year, 68, he's the one that got that. And the other squadrons like ABCCC, that's a C-130 squadron, they all got and started jazzing up his Jeep. And there was one heck of a big party at the squadron, at the officers club that night. There's Joe Kittinger. Many might, when I said the name, it might have jogged your memory, but on August 16th, he's the gentleman who jumped out of that gondola and is a test pilot. Great squadron commander, a great squadron commander. Here we are at the bar, Udorn, triple nickel. There's his major kill. They put it up there on the bar. And it was one heck of a party after all that dry spell. It got so party, we decided to take Joe Kittinger's squadron car, Jeep, and put it in the officers club. And two big, huge, massive oak doors, and about probably 30 drunk guys put this thing sideways and put it in, and we got it into the officers club. There's the officers mess operator. She ran the place. Inside of it, and Joe came out. This is Joe Kittinger right here. He came out. He says, "Guys, I need my Jeep tomorrow." So he designated me and another guy in the squadron, Ken Kingsmore. And he says, "You guys, I want my squadron Jeep tomorrow." So we had to get up early. We went to the motor pool, and the motor pool came out, and they said, "Well, if we flatten the tires and we may be able to get it out, that may help a little bit." They couldn't get it out at all. They had to take the two oak doors off the hinges and get a jack and then take it out sideways, and no scratches. But no one could believe that we got in the doors with no scratches on the door dots. Udorn being real close to the closest one to North Vietnam, we had to set 5-minute alert. This is the alert shack. This is the klaxon, the little speaker right here. When it said the right code words, everyone would scramble out this door and beat to your airplane. We had 4 Air Force on alert. You're on alert for about 2 days, 2 to 3 days was the max. It was because it was nothing to do, just read papers. We showed a lot of movies, and ate well. We had a maid there, but wasn't a lot to do. Get your letters. You're not going to believe it, but that's me sleeping at night. I slept with my boots on because you remember now, if that klaxon goes off, you've got 5 minutes to get out that door and get the airplane started and start rolling going in 5 minutes. We use cart starts, and I'll show you that in a minute. But this is the way I slept: boots on. That's my G suit inflator. I'm going to plug into the airplane. You don't have time to put it around your waistband, so I was all ready to hit the door. That's the way most everyone did. There are very few people ever took their shoes off. There's a cart start, and I'll tell you what, when you get those carts, this fumes from this is very toxic. If you're not on 100% oxygen by now, you're not going to make it, because your eyes will just start blistering and you'll be crying. You want to be able to see where to go. So your first deal is to get your mask and bring your shade down on the clear shade down on the face. They start the engines real quick, boom, kaboom, and you got the engines going, and the first one airborne is lead. That was a 1-year tour I had at UDORM. Ended up with 160 combat missions. Here's me coming back in the last squadron. This is the wing commander there. It was Charles Gabriel, General Gabriel. This is me getting out of the airplane. That's one of my backseaters. We're both getting out of for our last mission. Of course, a lot of hoopla down there. Champagne. That's me. That's Joe Kittinger. That's my squadron commander. And right here is the colonel. He came on to be the chief of staff of the Air Force eventually. How do you like these clothes right here? Look at that. It really, that was niche. Really cat's meow back then. Taking a few more hands. That's Gabriel right there. Colonel Gabriel became 4-star. And they have a tradition in the triple nickel. Anyone getting their last flight, they throw you in this slimy green. Green was our colors. Of course, you try to ride and run away and get away, but they always trap you and throw you into you. So you just sort of up a little resistance, but you know you're going to go in one way or the other. And then after a while, they started doing this and spraying it. This container here in the truck with the water was for the fire department. And they started using this as a hose for the guys that would start running away. It was pretty good, but it turned out to be a bad deal. We found out this truck sitting out in the hot sun of northern Thailand, this water gets very, very hot. And they didn't even think about it. And one day they pulled out on a hot day after it's been sitting in the sun, and they scalded a couple people doing this. So we learned a valuable lesson that it's a no-no. And back in those days, once you're going to get wet, you might as well take all prisoners, because get them wet too. Some more frivolity. And we had a tradition in the triple. We were the 3 guys that were leaving at the same time. We went over at the same time. Put you on this trolley, and you go around and get to meet you go from one revetment to the next revetment, going down to shake the hands of each crew member of all the guys that work on your airplanes. All the enlisted guys, we thank them for keeping them safe. And it's a neat tradition going down and shaking each one. Generally, as we moved down the whole aisle, they would come out to greet us, so we didn't have to get off, but it was a really good send-off. Then you go back to the squadron, and that's it, you're done. My next assignment after that was I was going to Okinawa, Japan, not back to the States like most people. I went to the 67th Tactical Fighter Squadron on Kadena and became a wild weasel in the F4. And after being in the F4 for probably 6 months and flying the wild weasel training missions, we were up at Kunsan one day and on a deployment, the whole squadron. And our squadron commander we had a meeting, and he says, "Gentlemen, this meeting will never get out to your wives, but I need 7 pilots and 7 backseaters to volunteer to go back to Vietnam in the wild weasel role. And honest to God, every man in the room raised their hand. Now, I say that, but there were 4 guys whose wives were having babies probably within the next month or 2. And the squadron commander said, don't even think about raising your hand because we don't know how long you're going to be there. So I raised mine, and I think they just wanted someone who just came from there. I was probably the most recent to go back. So we took 6 airplanes, 6 wild weasel airplanes, and 9 crews to Karat in September of '72. So I just left, 72. That'd be about 6 months before that. I just got. Wild weasels, just to talk a little bit about them, our motto was first in, first out. We led the strike forces before they went into the high threat area, and we tried to get all the SAMs out of SAMs, and we were the last ones out. So the strike force went in, came out, and then we came out after them. Wild weasel crew, basically in the pilot, the only thing we had to detect on the missiles was a raw gear, and it just sort of gives you a rough clock around a clock, the 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock position. You have a SAM coming. The backseater has a tremendous electronic warfare stuff back. He's got oscilloscopes, and he knows megahertzes and gigahertzes and all that stuff, and he can analyze them and figure out what it is. And if they're just looking at you, if they're firing SA2s at you, he can tell that all in the back. You always flew as a formed crew. This is the first time I got into the formed crew concept. You don't fly with a different person each time. So John and I flew together the entire time as a weasel. And it's very important you get to know each other. Just like when I flew the SR-71, we never switched backseaters at all because of the necessity of knowing each other. These are our squadron hatches. That's a 67th Tactical Fighter Squadron. We call it the boxing chicken. And this is anyone that flew the wild weasels. This is the patch for the wild weasel, YGBSM. And I'm going to show you in the next slide here what YGBSM stands for. It comes from a B-52 EWO who wanted to become a backseater in the wild weasel. So he's coming out of B-52s into fighters. And the squadron commander in the fighter, he said, here's your job. Here's what you got to do. You still want to volunteer. And here's what he said back to the squadron commander. I'll let you read it. That's where the YGBSM comes for. So that became the motto of all wild weasel crews. You got to be kidding me. That was the original one, F-100. They used it. It didn't work very well. The F-100, anyone that flew it, it just doesn't turn good. It doesn't have a good turn cycle, and it couldn't carry a whole lot. So they didn't use the 100 very much. There's some of the crews flying. Back in the old days, the old hats over in Vietnam. Then came the F-105s. F-105 is good for the wild weasel mission, except it can't turn very good. So when a SAM's coming up at these guys, they have to do some real pulling on the pole. I saw full 105 weasels get shot down just because they couldn't make the turn. Here's the 2 missiles they have for the wild weasel mission. I'll talk to those a little bit later. And now here's the F-4C ZG. That's Okinawa's tail 474. This is the wild weasel mission. You can see it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 wild weasels on it. Now, get back to the same picture again. Remember my first year I was up here at Udorn. Now we're down at Karat. This is where the wild weasels, the F-105s were. So we thought, I guess the military thought you might as well be where the F-105 wild weasels are. You have something in common, obviously. So this is where we went to the second. So every time we went up into North Vietnam, we generally hit one of the tankers. There were basically 3 tanker orbits right up in here in by Van Chinh, one down here in East Thailand, and another one down in here. So basically those were the anchors, like 24/7 gas tanks, all day, all night. There's a shot of Carrot Air Force Base. This is the flight line over here. This guy, I just have to mention, his name is Roscoe. Roscoe was infamous. You talk to anyone who's been a Carrot, and you talk about Roscoe, it's this dog. It was a dog, just a plain old mutt, but he became our symbol and status of fighter pilots. Anywhere you saw him walking, everyone on base would stop the car or stop their Jeep or whatever to try to give him a ride back and forth. The deal was with Roscoe, and what I'll tell you more about, well, when we get into the briefing part, Roscoe sat in on all the briefings, and the story went, if he sits off to the side nice and quietly and doesn't yell and bark and run around and chase his tail, it's going to be a nice, calm mission. But if he gets up and starts barking and running around, all hell's supposed to break loose on your mission. So that was the theory of the dog, Roscoe, sensing what the mission was going to be like. This is our commander that was down there that came down. Obviously, he asked all the crew members to come down. He said, I'm coming by as well. Colonel Parkhurst, that's my back seater in the Wild Weasel for the whole time we were in there. That's our transportation back and forth, tie bikes. Fort Apache was a sort of like the center of operations. It had the weather, it had all the squadrons, all the intel folks, they were all at Fort Apache. Now this is the 17th, this is the F-105's building. They were there before us, so they shared and found enough room for offs to go ahead and have, we needed about 5 rooms and that was it, and they had the room for us. So it's a natural progression for us to learn from what they know about the SAMs, and because we were brand new at using the F-4. This is the first time the F-4 is going to be used in combat. It is a Wild Weasel. That's the scheduling office. I apologize for the cameras, but this is the cameras we had back then. That's the schedule board. Mail. That's our dog. That's the commander, Colonel Parkhurst. And the scheduling room here. Each of us, Colonel Parker said you guys can name your own airplane. So that's young me, and that's John Williams, my backseater. So again, you fly as a crew, just like we do in the SR-71 the whole time. We decided to name it Dick's Peace Machine because my name is Richard, and also Richard Nixon was our president at the time, so we called it Dick's Peace Machine. There's another crew, Floyd and Al Palmer. Bob Tidwell and Haney. Now these aren't flight suits. I don't know why they got their picture taken out by the thing. These are what we call our party suits. When you go over to the officers club, like I said before at UDORN, everyone has their own squadron. You go, that's what you wear to the club for lunch, dinner, for boozing, for whatever you're doing at the club. And what you can't see on our party suits, if you turned around to the back, all the way up to the neckline down to the crotch, is a big SA-2 SAM missile going straight up. It's patched on in the back of it. Here's another crew. Dick Myers and Triplet, another crew. Dick Myers, this gentleman right here with us, ended up being the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Very well liked as a crew member. I mean, he was good, and I can see why he made it all the way up to the highest ranks of the military. Good man. Another crew. Rub-a-dub Tub, Tom Floyd, Bob Palmer. And there's the whole squadron. We got a squadron picture with everyone in one of our airplanes. That's my guy. That's the guy I flew with in the inlet there. There's the Shrike missile. It's called the AGM-45. It's an air-to-ground missile. Has some flaws to it, which I'll get to next. We carried 2 on each pylon, one under the left and right. A little bit of information about the Shrikes. Very narrow field of view. It's about, if you were to look straight ahead and go about 15 to 20 degrees left and right with your hands, that's about all it's looking at. It's half the range of the SA-2. So guess what? That means you have to be in their threat range to go ahead and fire for them. Fire to them. And who's faster? The SA-2 is coming at you at Mach 3.5, whereas our missile is going down at them at Mach 2. So it's going to get to you first. No memory capability. This is very difficult. In other words, if I fired a SAM, I have to be in about a 15-degree cone when I fire it. I can't be off it can't be off my left wing or behind me or anything like that. You have to be aiming towards it. And there's the Shrike missiles on the front airboard, the inboard missile rail. Here's a jamming pod, and here's some Sparrows in case the MiGs came up. These are 370-gallon tanks, 370 here and 370-gallon here. We have a big centerline tank that holds 600 gallons. I'll show you one of those later. This is the typical configuration we flew in. Now the Shrike missile. I said it has a lot of problems with it, with a good luck, and everything working. Don't pull the plug on their electronics. It can make for a bad day at work. Here's a Shrike coming off the missile. I'm sorry, off the missile rail. And here's the Shrike coming into the rain. Watch it. Whoops. Now that's the AGM-45 homing in on the radar. Remember, we don't want to go after the missiles. If you wipe out the radar, you have now denied 6 SA-2s from ever working again. So that's the logic behind it. So you don't go after the missiles. That denies the missiles from being worked. This is a SA-2, solid booster back here. It's good for about 2 seconds. 5 to 19 miles is up to 60,000. It'll get to Mach 3.5. Now, here's a picture. You see these circular rings. That's 50 miles, 40. Down here, you can see a 30, and then there's a 20 and a 10. This center point, that's Hanoi, downtown Hanoi. All these triangles, and they get a lot more. You can see them right here. The denser as closer you get into North Vietnam, right into Hanoi. Now, what it doesn't show on here is all the AAA, the 57, 85 millimeter. It's all around here as well. These are your SAM sites. This is a moving thing because all these SAM sites are mobile, not real mobile. In other words, they can't take it one day and erect it the next day, but they can move them around. Quite dense in here, and this is what we had to go over when we did the December. The 11 days of Christmas, we called it, and very, very dense. And I'll show you that later. There's an SA-2 on a mobile trailer. And here's what they look like from the air. This is a big picture. There's the center of it. It's all the radar. Here's all the SAMs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And here's a blow up here. Here's the radars in the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and a 6, all around it. If we wipe out the radar, they're all denied. Nothing's working. There's another closer look at it. There's a missile launcher. There's 2, and there's a third one up here, which I got blocked out on my camera. And there'd be 3 more in the back. This one is rather obvious. I don't know where this came from, but I saw it and I thought I'd just get a picture of it. Just sort of. That's pretty easy to see from the sea, but it gives you the idea of how it has to cluster around the radars. There's one coming off the rail, like I said, about 5 seconds of big boost, then it goes into a rocket mode. I found this on the internet. Here you can see one of the SAMs bursting, and I'm not sure what that's hitting an airplane up here, what the type of airplane is. It looks like an F4 to me, best I can tell. Here it is here. That is an F4. You can tell by the way the tail goes up. And it's going away, and hopefully they bailed out. Now this picture I just found on the internet. Here's an SA-2. You can see a trajectory going up about here, and you can see this is an F-105. I can tell just by the profile. That's a 105. It looks like they're going to meet about right here somewhere.
They're going close.
And here's one that just they either got hit or I don't know. They're trailing smoke for some reason. I think he probably got hit. When they hit here, they explode and they fire out these little metal rods, and that's what's going up and pushing the airplane and the fuel tanks and everything else. And that's what I think they got a tank at least. And there's some of them. That's 37 millimeter, and they had 57 millimeter as well. Radar guided on it. This was not radar guided. that was also a lethal threat in North Vietnam. It's another squadron that was there. I just have to mention them a little bit. EB-66s. This airplane was called an EB-66, and what they are, they're jammers. You can see it not very well, but there's a massive number of antennas underneath the belly of the EB-66. They have to stay out of harm's way. They could be way over in Laos or getting close to North Vietnam. They can be very vulnerable. If the bad guys go after them, they're probably going to get shot down. But they do have a tremendous amount of jamming, and that's what we used a lot to go up and jam the SAM sites. Now, you know well, we talked about the AGM-45, how bad it was, now we're going to talk about the AGM-78. Look how massive this air-to-ground missile is. We'll talk about it now. Oh, it was called the Standard Arm. It could actually fire. I could be having the SAM site to my back and fire it that way, and it'll do a 100-degree turn after firing. So I don't have to be heading towards the bad guys. Range is 75 miles, which is way outside the range of the SA-2 4 times. So you could stay out of harm's way, basically, 180-degree and still fire it. Still slower by about 1 Mach, a little bit faster than the Shrike. And it had a memory capability. I could be heading up this way, lock onto a site down here, turn around, go out this way, fire it, and it would take memory and come back and shoot it down. So it was very good with this memory capability, whereas our Shrike had a very small memory capability. That's an F-105 with one of each on board, the 78 here and AGM-45 here. Now this is our tail name, ZG from, like I said, we came down from Okinawa to augment the F-105s. Now I must have taken the first world's selfie. That's me in the F-4 front seat. I had this big camera and I took a picture through the mirror. This is the mirror. And I'm sorry, where's the mirror? The mirror was up here where your back would be. And here's the front of the windscreen right here. But I guess it'd be a selfie. We're going to talk about 11 days of linebacker. I was up there for 5 of those 11 days. That lasted from 18 to 29 September. And this it's a sore spot with me. You're going to see, and I'm going to talk about how in 11 days, we ended the war. 11 days. It could have been done years before, if someone had the gall to do it. 266 SAMs fired during that 11 days. Peace talks signed on 27 January of 73. So 11 days of so at 29 December, this was over. And less than a month later, peace talks. And this still gets on my crawl. That could have been done years ago if we had the release. Here's some of our airplanes, Okinawa, ZG, and a 4-ship getting ready to go up for Hanoi. A lot of gas was used that night. Most of our missions were all done at night. I'm doing the daytime here just so you can see what's going on. This is looking through this is where you'd be using for air-to-air engagements or air-to-ground dropping. A lot of tankers. When they started the linebacker, they were all done at night. And all those anchors, there were anchors everywhere. And they were at different altitudes. There could have been 3 tankers lower than this tanker refueling other airplanes. That's what it looks like looking down from the tanker. This is some Shrikes. You can see 2 Shrikes on it. Now this is one that I just show you because you get a little bit of a kick out of this. This is a configuration we would maybe start with 370 gallons on each wing, all internal, then 370, and then the 600 gallon tank in the center. We would burn out of it first from takeoff all the way up and then get rid of it as soon as we could. And then we'd have more gas on the maneuver. This one was very G restricted. You couldn't pull a whole lot of G's with it because it's a very flimsy tank. So we just pickled them off wherever it was. We didn't, just from 25, 30,000 feet, just pick it. You don't know where it's going to land. It's just going to flop over. But North Vietnamese people, after the war was over, are very, really thought out of the box to make these things useful. And here's what they made out of our 600-gallon tanks. A boat. They cut them in half, and they can make these long boats out of our tank. That's one of the tanks. And if you want a whole fleet of them, there's a whole fleet of them as well. Those are our 600-gallon tanks that we just punched off anywhere and everywhere. Linebacker summary of the whole 11 days. 729 B-50. First time the B-52s were used directly over Hanoi. Now, they were used prior on linebacker 1 and a few others around the periphery of Hanoi, but this is the first time they went right over, and 720 sorties. And I'll tell you what, it was a zoo up there. There's how many Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines sorties during that 11 days, 20,000 pounds of dog. 27 aircraft lost, 20 of those to SA-2 missiles. And all that work for that whole time, that whole mission, for those 11 days of Christmas, was the worst. It was worth it to get our POWs out. And I couldn't be more happy and proud to be a naval homecoming operation. These guys have been up there a long time. Some of them, 6, 7, 8 years. A lot of them died while they were in prison. I got done, ended up 210 combat missions. That's with both. That's both tours. 4 DFCs and 19 air medals. After the Wild Weasel in Vietnam, we flew the 73 in December, right after the 11 days of the war. About January 1 through 7, we ferried our planes back to Okinawa. February was the latest. Surprisingly, we didn't go right. We went back to home to where families lived and everything. But a lot of us got down to TDY, down to CCK. That's the southern end of Taiwan in March of '73. And I was one of the lucky ones that had to turn around right from getting back to home, getting there finally after the war was over, and go down to Taiwan. And a lot of people say, "What were you doing down in Taiwan?" We're sitting nuke alert. I don't think many people in the world even know that we sat nuke alert in Tainan, but that's what we did down there. Tainan, it's a very southern end of Taiwan. Taiwan, you have Taipei at the north, Chung in the middle, and Tainan at the very southern end. That's the bomb we sat on nuke alerts of B-57, 5 to 20 kilotons. We eventually got this B-61, an improved missile. We called it dial a yield. So you could dial up to 170 kilogram, whatever burst you wanted out of this thing. And those are the 2 nukes we sat nuclear with down at Northern. What we were doing was putting a safety belt on Taiwan. Kissinger made a handshake with South Vietnam. They were looking for an airplane that we could quickly, after the 11 days of war, we said, "Oh my gosh, we need to give them some airplanes." They don't have anything. So they came up with the F-5s, the super T-38s. So most F-5s were all in Taiwan. They had a bunch of F-5s. So Kissinger made a trade. They said, "Okay, give us all your F-5 so we can give them to the South Vietnamese, and we will be your nuclear umbrella for you." And that's what we did. We played nuclear umbrella with the F-4s because they gave up all their F-5s. That's how we got there. Outgrowth of this was, everyone said, and like most reasons, you need a dedicated airplane for specific roles, and they came out with the F-4G. Now it's being done by the F-16s, doing the F-4 wheels. There's a Wild Weasel F-4. And my reward was getting out of there. Since I was over Okinawa, I used to meet a lot of the SR guys at the bar, and we'd start talking about F-4s and Wild Weasels and SR-71s, and they got me enthused in the airplane up there. And that's why I applied after I got back from I won. I applied for the SR-71 program. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off there. There's the 5 books I've written. If anyone wants to get them, you can get them on eBay. I'll be glad to autograph them, but buy them on eBay. That makes it so much easier for me. If you do it on eBay, you have to make sure, want to get a book of mine, it has to be the ID has to be SR-71 Pilot 1974 to 1981. That's my name on eBay for the books, 1974 to 1981. And if you want time, if we got enough time, Mike, we can take questions. I'm all done.
So I was curious, for your first tour in Vietnam, what kind of air combat training did you receive?
Well, it's quick. They were doing it short. It was like 7 months at Davis Mountain. That's when I had what's his name in my back seat, teaching me all the ways. They said he would always tell me, "You're never going to find this in the syllabus, Rich." But when he would put me in some strange, we went out to the Gila Bend Range one night for a night drop bomb. And on the way back, he said, "Give me the airplane." And what he did, he took the stick in the back and he said, locked his knees and he said, "You now have the airplane. You just had battle damage. You can't move the stick. Get me to Davis Mountain from Gila Bend." So he showed me, and they're thinking, you can't move the stick left, right, or anything. Using throttles and differential, you can make the power go up and down to make it go up and down, or you could turn the throttles left and right to get more thrust to make a turn, or sort of turn the airplane on thrust one way or the other. And he taught me how to fly the airplane all the way back on a downwind leg, a base leg, and a final approach right down to about 500 feet. And then he said, "You take it," and you got it, and I landed right out of it. But he did it all with differential thrust. And it just proves the kind of guy that I had for an instructor. He didn't even care about the syllabus. He said, "I'm going to teach you things that aren't even in the syllabus." I was very lucky.
Yeah. So did you have any encounters with MiGs while you were over there?
MiGs I did. We had some what we call fur bottles, where you get, wrap around. I fired a few missiles, some air-to-air radar. I got a couple of sidewinders off, never got close to one.
Huh.
They were real good on hightailing it back to Hanoi. And the closer you got, they suck you in there. You saw that threat ring, and that's why they were trying to suck you back into there.
So did you have any air-to-air training in the
family? Yeah, no, it's all like, it's at 7 months at Davis Mountain, they teach you air-to-air, air-to-ground. It's all there. Now, obviously, every day you fly it in combat, you're learning more and more all about it too. But yeah, your basic training was taught you everything.
Richard, this is John Schmidt. I can't tell you how grateful I am that you would present to our chapter tonight. You're truly a living a member of aviation history. I'm interested in Pardew's push because I've read about it and I've done some research on it, and it's an incredible story in aviation. I'm glad you got to know the guy personally. Did you stay in touch with him for a while after your service was over?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Yeah, he actually, when I was still in UDORN, he was still back at DM, and I was writing him from, giving my combat experiences. Yeah. Pardo was a different guy. He was a different animal. I just knew all my other guys in my F4 class, they had young captains and majors being instructed. And here I had a lieutenant colonel. It just seemed a little bit strange. But he taught me everything. And I didn't even know about Pardo's push. And he didn't brag about it, didn't bring it up. And I didn't know about it, but I knew he was out there thinking outside the box all the time.
Richard, I was given a book for Christmas by Robin Olds, fighter pilot. He was down in Uban. You ever have a chance to cross paths with him? Probably not, but I don't think you guys are too far apart down there.
Yeah, I got real close with him also up at Oshkosh. I haven't gone in several years now, but my wife and I used to go to Oshkosh every year for about, I think we did about 12 years in a row. And he would come up. I was selling my books with a art gallery that's out in California, and he would come up from California and sell his book. And I got to know him quite well. He and I used to go out to a few drinks at night after we were all done at Oshkosh.
Good for you.
I'll tell you a little story about him. One of the parties we went to, I knew most of the people, and I invited him along. And they wanted to meet him, and he had a good time. It's getting around 1 o'clock in the morning, and my wife was with me on this trip, and she said we need to get going home because we have to be back in Oshkosh about 9 o'clock in the morning. And I said, will you guys take care of him? And they said, sure, don't worry about that. We'll give him a ride back to his hotel and all that. I said, great. So I said goodbye to him, went back to my hotel. The next day I heard the story. He got so smashed. He had no earthly idea what hotel he was in. He didn't have a key or anything. Just, it was unbelievable.
Who was that?
Well,
Phone off here.
that's cool.
Oh, my wife got it. But it was just a joke. When I saw him the next day, he laughed about it. He couldn't even find his own hotel. What the guys did, they went and just sort of by question and answers. Do you think you were down in, this street or that street? Or was there a lot of other things around here? What did you see? What do you remember? And they finally got, after about an hour of going to different hotels, they finally found it.
Good story.
Richard, Jim Fisher here. Did you ever teach?
Say again?
Did you ever teach?
Teach? Oh, yeah.
Teach it fighters?
Yes,
Or,
Oh, yeah. Airplanes?
yeah, teach
Yeah.
other people what you found out.
I taught T-37, T-38, the F4, SR-71B model. Just flew the U-2, didn't instruct in the U-2, didn't instruct in the KC. T-38 instructor. That's about it.
When did the Air Force start having a specialized tactics school?
I would say, this is just me thinking backwards. I think that all those schools were an outgrowth of Vietnam. So I'd say real close after Vietnam, 72, 73, out at Nellis, they started thinking more and more, we need to have a dedicated school for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, because our success in Vietnam wasn't very good, at least
No.
for the first part of the war.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I have a question. I'm Tom Youngdahl. Is Joe Kittinger still alive?
Yeah, Joe, we talk, we email probably once a week. Still doing good. He's down in Florida. He's getting a little bit slower though. What's the name of the company that does all they jump off cliffs and all that kind of stuff.
Red Bull?
Yeah, Red Bull. He worked for Red Bull for about 4 years, not doing that stuff, but he was sort of like their spokesperson, and he really liked that Red Bull job. He loved it. He's not doing it anymore, but
In the early 90s, he came up, we had a mutual friend, and that guy came up with his wife to Minnesota, and he was one of the few guys that flew my airplane. I built a Pitts Special, and he came up and flew it. And I'm fairly tall, so I built a tall man's Pitts, and then we had to put telephone books and whatnot on the seat so he could reach the rudder pedals. And anyway, he wrote me a nice letter afterwards, which I have subsequently lost, but I was hoping he was still alive.
wow.
Is his wife still with him too?
Well, you're catching me right now with a big blank.
Yeah. I forgot her name, but she was in the early 90s. She was sort of kind of is also a press secretary, if you will. He was involved with Rosie O'Grady's Flying Circus, which flew a bunch of Stearmans around.
Somehow I seem to remember his wife being somewhat, I'm not going to say a movie star, but something in that kind of a category. A celebrity, for a better word.
That might have been Robin Old's wife.
Yeah, Robin Old's wife was a celebrity. Yep.
Yeah, she was a movie star for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rich, I've been reading a lot of this last year or so about World War II and the tremendous losses of pilots in World War II in those pioneering days of flight. So I wonder, from your experience in Vietnam, you had a lot of friends that flew. What was the rate of friends that were lost and captured? You must have known some that were shot down. And
well, I don't have a good handle on rate, because then you'd have to know how many stories were flown to get a rate and all that. I have no idea. But
just a rough feeling from the people you knew, like you have, you know.
I would say, of all the people I knew from my 1 year at, well, 1 year we probably lost 25 guys. I don't know what that, sortie rate that works out to or whatever, but I just know about 20 guys, 20, 25 guys that we lost. I'm just thinking about how many, ceremonies we had, and that's probably about a good number.
And how about
now you also have to remember my era up at Udorn, that 1 year, that was what I would call a more passive year. The years before that, they were hot and heavy. They were losing a lot of airplanes. We weren't losing that many. We were everything you do, you're learning for survival. And I think they got better and better. And then I got out of the F4 and into the weasel business.
Yeah.
So I've read where Nixon was pretty popular with the troops for lifting the restrictions.
You meet any POW, they have a big thank open for him. The only sorry spot is that it could have been done years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like if the war would have been fought to win, it would have been over in months, not years.
Yeah. Like I say, we basically ended it in 11 days. That was it. And actually, I should say nights, because the first 5 nights, there were very, very few daytime raids. That's mostly they went up for reconnaissance and intelligence of what we did, how good or how bad we did. So all the missions, for at least for the 5 or 6 days, were all nighttime. That gave us a little bit of an edge over them by going by night. And then after that, it got real passive.
I'm going to ask you one SR-71 question. It's related to Vietnam. I read somewhere that they had 3 SR-71s fly over the Hanoi Hilton at the same time in order to send some type of a signal with their sonic boom. All 3 of them at the same time.
Well, can you hold on for a second?
Yeah.
I'll give you the answer. This is a book put out by it's a CIA book. And they did it one of their A12 things. Let me just make sure I got my numbers right. Okay, you probably can't see this. That's a chart of all the flights they flew with the CIA A12, okay?
Okay.
None of the dates, you're the first one that's asked me that question. None of the dates they're all separate dates. There's no 2 in one day or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Let me see if they went up to, nope, even when we went up over North Korea, 3 missions went up over North Korea. Those were all on separate days as well.
Huh,
I knew I had the answer somewhere.
interesting.
Did they turn around? Did you end up doing missions that were probably into Laos or some other activity area where technically we weren't supposed to? And similar to like the SR-71 or A-12s, where they said, well, we never did that mission, but
I don't think it's, no, it doesn't say anything about where they went. The 3 missions went up to North Korea. The other ones say North Vietnam, and three missions were in Cambodia and Laos. I'm sorry, just 2. These 2 missions were in Cambodia and Laos. These were all over North Vietnam, and these 3 up here were over North Korea. You remember we lost that listening ship, the Pueblo?
Yep.
USS Pueblo. The North Koreans seized it, and we had no earthly idea where it was at. Well, it just so happened the A-12s were flying for the CIA out of Okinawa, and so they flew 3 missions searching over North Korea, directly over North Korea to find it. And they found it in the harbor on the 2nd flight. That gave visible proof that we know that you have captured our USS Pueblo, and we want it back right now.
It's interesting.
Any other SR or anything? F4?
So in around, I think 1986, SR-71 came to K.R. Sawyer Air Force Base up in Michigan. Were you flying it then?
No. 86, let's see, I was still in the, unfortunately, I was still stuck in the Pentagon.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Jim Fisher again. I've heard the Phantoms were not very good for turning around in a dogfight or whatever with the MiGs. Now, is that pretty common where you just try to do anything straight ahead? You didn't care to get any dogfight with and just do missiles and leave?
Well, your best shot would be if you get a radar, get them out about 30 miles, 25, 20, 30 miles, and hose one off. We figured that anything coming out of the north heading down our way is bad, although it could be one of your own. That's what you had to really worry about. I don't know. I never heard of any fratricide in airplanes over there. There might have been some, but
So at that point, did the Phantom have a gun pod on it by then or no?
The F4s, yeah, they had a centerline gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did anybody in your time there, did anybody use that and carry that gun pod in combat?
Yeah, let me back up to the previous question. When you said the gun pod, or you mean the F4Es that actually had the internal gun?
No, I guess when your first tour of duty, you were flying what, the F4, was it the C model?
Mm-hmm.
And they had a separate pod, I think, right, for the gun?
Yes, it's a remove and replace.
Okay. And was that something that you guys flew with on a regular basis or?
No.
No?
Never got done. I didn't want I'd rather have 2 AIM-9 sign winders on me than have the gun.
Okay.
Yeah. What was the other question you started? Somebody started one.
I didn't know if you said how you got interested in flying in the first place. When did you start flying?
My dad, my real dad died when I was 2 years old. He was a merchant marine, went to the merchant marine school, and doing the ships back and forth across the Atlantic, and he did quite a few of those. I was only 2 years old. I'm getting this from all the literature and stuff that my mother saved. Did several crossings back and forth, and as many of you know, the merchant marines had a very high sub kill rate. He didn't get killed by that. He ended up with, whew. Anyhow, he died in the Long Island Naval Hospital with some kind of intestinal. I can't remember what it was. And then my mother, she didn't remarry for 2 years, and she finally married an airplane guy. He flying the F-4 Corsairs out of Olathe, Kansas, as an instructor. So she married him, and that's where the flying bug started getting to the main. Then he became a weekend wonder kind of warrior for the Guard, and he'd bring home his helmets and hat and all that. And he always told my brother and I, don't ever touch this stuff. And of course, when he and his mom went out to party or dance or something like that, he and I would get in the closet, put on the helmet, and pretend like we were flying. And he also had his instructor's rating. So all I had to do as I grew up, I had to just pay for the airplane. And I worked in Newcastle, Pennsylvania airport as a handyman, wash airplanes, wax them, pump gas, anything you wanted. Instead of paying me money, they gave me flying hours. And of course, my dad was free. So that's how I got my license.
So you're doing this in high school or?
This is high school, yeah.
Okay.
My last 2 years of high school and then into college.
Okay.
In the summers, I went to college at Akron University, and then I was very lucky. I got my private pilot's license before I went to college. And then when I went to ROTC, my third year, they put you in a flying school. They pay for you to get your rating, your pilot's license. And our professor of air science, the PAS there, I went up to him. I said, "Sir, I've already got my license. You think they would get a multi-engine, put the same money out, and let me get a multi?" Well, he wrote a letter to them, and they came back and said, "Money's approved." So I got my multi from the Air Force too.
Well, I'm asking you because I'm teaching a high school aviation course right now, and I like to share these stories with them because that's why we're teaching kids in high school, and it's good to
Yeah.
hear. Yeah.
That's where my money came from. Everything I did, I worked and got turned. Instead of getting money, I got flying hours.
Well, I hope somebody recorded this tonight because I kind of like to share with my class. Are we recording this at all, Mike?
I am, yeah.
All right.
So
well,
it's shared to the cloud, and I'll figure out how to get it out to the chapter members.
very good.
Yeah, I just stopped. I was instructing up at the Texans Flying Club up in McKinney up until just when COVID hit. I've got some problem with my eyes and 2 detached retinas, 1 in each eye. I got glaucoma in another eye, and all. It's getting fading, and I just said it's time to quit while you're ahead of the ball game.
Mm-hmm. So what did you just start? What was your first airplane you flew when you were in high
First
school?
airplane was Piper Colt, Colt, Colt.
Yeah.
2-seat fabric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I liked it. It was good. Yeah.
the
So that's why I got my license. That's why I got my license into my private.
Yeah. It's a short wing Piper.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a good, honest airplane, though. I'll tell you a little funny story about it with my brother. He was working at the airport too. He didn't have the real desire, the want to go ahead and be a pilot, but he did it private too, got his private. But anyhow, he was working at the airport one day, and I'm working on I think I was cutting the grass, and the unicorn goes off. It's him. He says, hey, I'm getting this big loud knocking noise. Go get our mechanic. So I got our mechanic, got him on the radio. They tried to, he kept saying, where's it coming from? He says, it sounds like it's coming from the engine. Big bang, 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 bang. And he said, well, come on back home and just go easy on the throttle and just sort of drift back and idle. So he came back, landed, pulled up in front of the pumps to put gas in. We came out and looked, you're never going to guess what the bump was. My dad always said, anytime you go solo, you take that seatbelt in the right side and you lock it down. He just had it hanging out, and that was the buckle going, it was hitting the wind, it's going inside. And the reason it stopped, guess why it stopped? It punched a hole through the fabric and stuck inside of it.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. He was so embarrassed.
Another patch on the fabric, right?
Yep, he had to pay for that one.
Yeah.
Did you ever do any aerobatic flying and stuff after flying all these fighter planes? When you get done flying with the 71, what do you do for fun?
Anytime I could get my hands on an airplane that was aerobatic, I did. There's a couple guys up in McKinney that had some aerobatic airplanes. I go up and there's a couple guys that really want to go up and spin. They're very hesitant to spins. Well, before I got into the F4s and everything, I was in ATC, air traffic, not air traffic. I was an instructor. And the one thing I loved to do when I was in the T-37s, I loved spins. People couldn't understand. I just love the spins. So I take all my students up at one time or another before they solo, and we talk about spins and what we're going to do it. And the FA doesn't really, they don't really, they're starting to care more about it, but they really didn't care about it much, 5-6 years ago. They want them to understand it, how to recover from it, what makes it happen, what's going on with the airplane, but they never really asked you. You didn't have to spin an airplane for a private pilot's license. I thought it was sort of crazy. And I never pushed it on my students. They wanted to do it. I would teach them everything I knew about spins. I used to do rudder only. I used to stick only recovery. I used to do inverted spins where you're on the top of the canopy of a T-37 trying to hold yourself up. And I really enjoyed spins. I like the aerodynamics of it, and a lot of airplanes exhibit good characteristics. I wouldn't want to get in one that doesn't.
Yeah, I've read where the T-37 was a really good airplane to fly, and I've heard other people say that was a lot of fun to spin, inverted, upright, whatever.
Yeah, it is very good goes. Yeah. We had a series that was called a 5-spin. Every instructor had to have once a year a 5-spin demonstration, and I was one of the demo pilots. I would go up and I would triple turn this thing in a day. Take one pilot up, do it down. Another one, do the 6 spins, and take another one, do the 6 spins. We did a normal recovery, rudder only recovery, inverted recovery. What was the other two? I can't remember what the other two. All different kinds of spins, various ones. We go up to 18,000 feet, configure it on the way down, and show them how to do it, because eventually they could get into it just as easily. Yeah, student could put you into anything.
Yeah. And you never had to bail out of an airplane?
Never. Worse, I got to find some wood here. Very lucky. I came close in an F4 though, real close. I don't think you know what BLC is, do you?
No.
BLC is called boundary layer control. On
Okay.
the F4, its boundary layer control sucks very, very hot, high speed air coming off of the turbine. Very hot and very, very fast. And what it does, it's plumbed back from there and it goes out the leading edges, and they blow the flaps. And they blow the flaps have hot air going over them. And if you have slats on the front, which they eventually got with slats on the front of the F4, hot air goes over that as well. And it has nothing to do with the fact it's hot. It's just because they get it off the turbine. They need high speed air. And what it does, it fakes the airplane out. It makes the airplane, the F4, feel like, hey, I'm flying here, at 10 knots, because the air is going over the wings and over the flaps and allows you to slow down. This artificial air. Well, this BLC comes off of the turbine, and where it comes off on both sides is about right beneath where the back seater's legs are. We're just sitting in a car, about right where the legs are. That's where underneath there is where all this hot stuff's going together, and all the plumbing and piping. Well, we're going up to North Vietnam. I'm lead, and the flight manual for the F4, we call it the -1. Under boundary layer control malfunction, BLC malfunction, it says in there, I'm gonna paraphrase it because it's about that long. It says basically, if you have a break in a BLC line, expect anything and everything to happen, because we don't know where it's going to start melting things. Well, I'm flying up there, and we're about over the capital of losing it. Just coming up into Laos. we're crossing from Thailand into Laos, and I've got
Me and Chin.
I got my 3 wingmen out there, and all of a sudden I feel the airplane go, boom. And my wingman says, "Whoa, you just lost your right missile just dropped off." Also go, "Phew." He says, "Wow, there goes your left one." I started to, all of a sudden, everything just was dropping off. I was making sure my hands, I wouldn't punch anything, because you can eject all this stuff if you need to in an emergency. You can push things and get a clean airplane if you have to. But it was just coming off. And my tele-light panel, it has all your emergencies on. It has, it's got 3 rows, and each row probably has 20 malfunctions that can happen. So you probably have 60 there. They started coming out green, then they go to orange, and then they go to red. It means you got a no shit emergency. They all started going red. My whole panel over there just started more and more and more and more. And I just immediately, I turned back to UDORN, and I told my wingman to take over the other 2 and have the other guy follow me back. Well, all the way back to UDORN, I'm dropping everything off the airplane, the centerline tanks, the outboard tanks, the missiles, anything that's connected to the airplane is just dropping off. Well, the other airplane, he's got the coordinates on his INS of where it's going, so they can hopefully find it. We get back to UDORN, and I wasn't even sure about flight controls. It was flyable, but one thing in that little "what can happen to you" article, it says flight controls can jam and lock up and burn up and the wiring's gone. And I still had it. So I had them at UDORN. We had a midfield barrier, not at approach end or at the other end, but at the middle of the runway. So I told him, put the barrier out. I'm going to have the hook down. And because I don't know what's going to happen, I might not even have brakes for all I know. So I got in there, I landed as fast as I could, and it's good. I felt that tug. I felt really good. I did have brakes, but I felt the tug, and that was real good. It stopped me, and it sort of pulls you back just a wee bit. All the ambulances came out, the fire trucks, and we're getting undone slowly. You got to make sure you're safe, safety your seat, or you're going to get shot up. So you safety your seat and take your time getting out. And all the people were coming out, the flying safety officer, the wing commander, everyone's coming out to see what the hell's going on. By the time we get out of our cockpits, go back, right at the trailing edge of the inboard flaps on both sides of the airplane, two sides, if you can see an anthill that's going up, this huge metal hill was being built like this, and metal was just melting and coming down over the fuselage and just dripping out of it, making two big piles on each side. And by the time I was there, it was about that big. It was just full of metal, molten metal wire. And I don't know what it chewed up or what it burned or melted, but it was a lot of solder coming out of there. And the flying safety officer told me the next day after looking at all of it, he said, you were probably 2 to 3 minutes from having to eject out of the airplane. That's my closest story for anything.
So did they write that airplane off, or did they repair it?
No, they repaired it.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, if it had, I don't know if it would have caught on to some kind of fire, real fire. This was just all heat creating it. And I don't know, there might have been some little fires from wiring bundles.
Yeah. Yeah.
The chair of Troy, Seamus Heaney. Human beings suffer. They torture one another. They get hurt, they get harmed.
Any more?
No poem or play or song can fully right or wrong inflicted and endured.
I think
History says
that's
don't hope on the side of the grave.
about it.
Quick question.
Okay.
Oh, we got one
Piece
more.
of tape.
What,
Yeah.
Long before time
in the T-37 back in 61, I think it was the A model, it seems we had the stall fences on the wing roots to give it a little cleaner stall for spins. Is my memory failed me?
What airplane now? F4s?
The T-37.
T-37. They put strakes on the leading edge.
That was, I think it was the A model back in 61 when I was flying it.
Well, all I remember, the only thing I knew for the spinning were the 2 strakes that came around the nose of the airplane. Those 2 little
Ah,
Those
yeah.
were, those were designed to keep when you're spinning, don't bear the nose too far. That's those streaks that were coming around there. That's all thing I remember. They were related to anything related to a spin.
Okay, we had, they looked like little pieces of angle iron on the leading edge of the wing.
Inboard, outboard.
Inboard, right up against the fuselage.
That's exactly what those were. You're right. They're like little triangular pieces that go from the wing to the fuselage. That was to make the spin characteristics more pure, I guess, and more
Okay,
easy to get out of. Yeah.
very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what did you go on to fly, Jim?
123s and 130s.
Okay.
You call, we haul.
I'll tell you what, I used to see a lot up there, up in Laos. We used to go up and pull up MiG cover for the gunships. We had AC-130 gunships going up in Laos, sparkling at night. And I'll tell you, it's the prettiest sight I've ever seen in my life. And we were just stepping about, 15,000 feet. We were just MiG cap in case the MiGs wanted to get testy and come down and try to intercept the AC-130s.
Yeah.
And of course, the AC-130s were helping the Laos. Not
Yeah.
the Pathet Lao. They call them the Pathet Lao with the bad guys. The Laotians were the good guys.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this tonight, Rich. We're looking forward to next month on the SR-71.
That'll do it. Do we have a date and time and everything?
I'll send you an invite, but it's
Okay.
it's always the third Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. So
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
It's good.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye,
Thank you,
guys.
Have a
Richard.
good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.
How to get out of this?
Say, Mike,
Yeah.
I got a reply on Barnstormers on the Easy Riser. Can you tell me what condition the motor's in and what kind of time is on it? Do you have any idea?
The engine is brand new. It's still in the original packaging, and it's well oiled, no rust, nothing.
Okay.
Looks
Okay,
great.
good.
Yep.
I'll reply to that then. Thank you.
Yep.
Must be about Miller time, huh?
Pop one for me too.
There
About some winter ale.
you go. Doesn't sound too bad. I haven't had much of a winter, but there's no reason to stop drinking it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, see you later.
Yeah, I got about 20 little bottles of wine I got to consume soon.
Start
Well,
working, Jim.
Before
I'll see you
midnight.
tomorrow.
All right, guys, good night. See you tomorrow.
See you,
See you
Reg.
tomorrow, Reggie.
You guys are building tomorrow night?
Mike, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So I saw the signals traffic, the emails about the costs of the building of the hangars.
Yeah.
And it was as I expected that we were going to get sticker shock from some of the vendors.
Yeah.
And I am willing to help out and work with or lead a construction crew for one of the sub jobs on the hangar. I think it's if we can get enough guys to commit some time and effort and tools, and everybody bringing their equipment out there. We got a lot of talent in this chapter, and we could actually do a lot of that work ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at that one price that Pat sent out, he had $28,000 in plumbing in that.
You had $28,000 in there for 2 firewalls.
Yeah, and then the bifold
Right.
door was $22,000.
Yeah.
That's
So he had money in there for the Biffy and for scaffolding and what am I thinking of? Well, scaffolding basically, but it's like, yeah, I mean, that was just, it was like, well, you know, we'll do it if you really want it that bad, but we really probably don't need the business is what he was telling us. So,
Exactly. Yep.
yeah, I'll call him tomorrow. I thought I'd let you guys see it first, but yeah, no, even that one from Ram, that wasn't terrible or whatever there. So, is there a possibility?
Pardon me, just, it may be that having a big mezzanine across the back like you were hoping for might be too much. And during the meetings, we'd have to push the airplanes out perhaps or something.
Yeah.
A 60 by 60 hangar sure is a lot bigger than the current chapter hangar for having guys sitting there on folding chairs. So we may not have to have such a ginormous 20-foot wide mezzanine, 18-foot wide mezzanine like we talked about. I stand corrected. My mezzanine is only 45 pounds per square foot live load, which is good enough for humans up there, maybe, you know, sitting in chairs and whatnot. But Mike York looked at the plans real carefully, and he noted that my mezzanine is only engineered for 45 pounds per square foot live load. That, I think, the city of South St. Paul is not going to be happy if they find that out, because I think they were requesting something higher because my hangar was zoned commercial.
Yeah.
But getting back to it, I think we can do a lot of work ourselves building this hangar, and we should rally the troops and get some verbal commitments from some guys to help. It's a lot of work. Most of what you saw in my hangar was done by one man over 5 years. I'd bring in guys occasionally to help do jobs that a one man could not do. So
Yeah.
I think if we had 3 or 4 crews of, 5, 8 guys each, God, you can do a lot. You really can. So
Yeah.
I think get them together.
Just out of curiosity, could you put, a 4 foot on second, where you either 18 or 20, could you put a couple of posts or 2 there and a couple of trusses up so that somewhere down the road, if you wanted to put a mezzanine like yours, you could do that? Or would it, if the structure, in other words, would be
Yes,
that,
in fact,
but you don't have to do that right now.
that is correct. I have other, there's another hard point in the south side of my hangar, so I could put a roll-up garage door on the south side. And it's hidden, the columns are there,
Okay.
and the infrastructure is there, but I covered it up with sheetrock and insulated it like a points put in.
Okay. Well, I think that's a
And
great idea, because it's basically, all this is a pole barn, really,
Right.
Posts in there and get everything up straight. We know we can do a lot of the cement work there and the in-floor heat type stuff, and so
Right.
sheet rocking, insulating.
And all the materials for the heater that I have that you saw in my hangar, all of it I think that the total bill came to roughly $3,400. Of course, those are 2014, 2015 dollars. But the 3,400 linear feet of tubing in the floor, I forgot what all that was, but that was probably $1,200 or something. We have the talent to actually do this sort of thing if we wanted to. If we're not in a hurry, it'll take a few more months, but we'll also get a good quality build, because I got to tell you, most people who do big construction that we're going to be capable of hiring, it's a crapshoot what kind of crew you're going to get. Mr. Charoux knows a pretty good builder but that's lucky. If you have a builder that you trust that is actually going to do decent work, it's worth keeping them happy with beer. Most of the crews are shitty compared to the work we would do.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what, I don't think, John's not still on here, I guess. He says, hopefully by the end of the week, we'll see what Walters has, but otherwise,
John Schmidt is still on,
yeah, we're still thinking or hoping for something from Walters pretty soon.
no question.
We'll see what they have for a number. Be interesting to see.
Yep. If push came to shove, would we be open to one post in the middle of that 18 or 20 foot mez?
Don't everybody answer all at once.
Yeah, because you'd have 30 feet on either side, right?
With a tail that you could stick under either corner.
Yeah. I would rather do that than not have a mez in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. We got to have a mezzanine. We got to have a mezzanine. And Tom is right. 45 pounds per square foot versus 100 pounds per square foot. I don't even know what mine is, per square foot. I have no idea what my hangar is, but I know you can put 3 trucks up there. The guy said you could put 3 trucks up there, for heaven's sakes, if you can get them up there, and it'll hold it, no problem.
Yeah.
And again, as Kurt Mears, we're going to get an estimate from him later on this week. We got to have a mezzanine.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. The question is would it be a 12 footer or 20 or an 18 footer?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a huge difference.
And what they can do with 18.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we get later on this week for the estimate from Walters.
Yeah.
I'm out. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Good night.
Right. And Mike, that Rams bid wasn't terrible, though. I mean, really, except it didn't have the mezzanine, I guess, right?
Right. I didn't have the mezzanine and didn't have the firewalls, I believe.
Yeah, which we can do.
So the one guy that's interested in buying our hangar, he has a spot reserved on the very end, and that would save us one firewall. So that's worth at least 10 grand to us.
Yeah, I talked to Mark about that guy. Mark says, the guy's kind of going back and forth. He's got, I guess, him and a partner have a twin engine airplane too. And he said, I wouldn't be able to keep both in that old hangar. But Mark said, I don't know how long that guy's going to have that twin engine either. He said, so it's a Seminole or whatever, I guess. So he said,
I suppose.
What's that?
I suppose we should. I suppose, speaking of the firewalls, I suppose we should start figuring out what it costs. Tomorrow I'll head to Menards and see what 5/8 sheetrock goes for these days, and multiply it out. And I'll look and see how many sheetrock pieces I had to buy, and see how much it costs. And don't forget, I think the screws to screw all the sheetrock in, I believe I paid upwards of $800 for those screws. There was a lot of them. But yeah, we can. I saw $28,000 to put all that put the firewalls up. Right? Is that what I saw?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah,
tape,
I don't know.
you have to tape the seams on each
No.
leg.
I don't think so. They have to be staggered.
Yes, stagger them. So yes, they don't. Yeah.
Correct. No taping of the seams.
So
And
there's no finishing to it. So it's not. It's just heavy lifting and screwing, and I kind of enjoy the latter. But
right. And did they allow 2 layers on the outside of the poles and 2 layers on the inside of the poles?
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's how I had done it, because because the screws are only so long, obviously. And 2 layers of 5/8 rock, as you know, it's getting right up there for thickness. So
Yeah. And that last layer, you're well, the bottom of the last layer is 16 foot, 20 foot tall wall. Yeah.
okay. Well, when John gets that bid from Walters,
We'll have another meeting, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what Mark says
Once
about that
again,
friend, it's the Delta pilot, I
kept-
guess. The Delta pilot has that lot D1 or whatever. So yeah, we'll see what Mark says about his buddy. Cause yeah, if we could switch, sell him our hangar and switch and get his lot, that would help out too before we start building. That'd be a corner, that'd be a nice one. It'd be right by the taxiway and we wouldn't have to build one firewall.
yeah, Mark told me it looks like he's gonna be at 205 with his metal building.
Okay, well, that's not too bad.
So, and the only difference is, he has a metal building, which is more expensive, but he's got an end lot, so he only has one firewall, but he went with this pretty expensive, metal sandwich panel
Yeah.
with a fire resistant material inside. And then he's got, I don't remember what he put in for heat. Did he put in a unit heater or radiant heat? He didn't do the in-floor
Didn't do
heat,
in-floor heat.
right? Which we can do pretty cheap, so that's,
Yep.
that's not like a
That's
huge
not a bad
cost.
price, 205. And like you said, we could do some of the work ourselves, the floor and stuff. So
Yeah, and he's not doing any of the work,
no, so
so, he can save
Once
some money
again,
off that.
Mears probably would remember my situation. They put up the poles in the ground, they put the trusses on the poles, then they tinned the top of the trusses. And then they stood down for 2 weeks while I put the rock on the outside. Then they came back and tinned the outside of the three sides of my building. And when they were done with that, Schweitz put the door frame on.
Got it.
And then everybody left and I did everything else myself. Everything else on the inside myself. All they did is put the poles in the ground, tin the ceiling, then I rocked the outside, and then they tinned the outside and hung the door, the Schweitz door. And I did everything else myself. And so I know Mears is familiar with doing some operation like that, where they do the bare minimum that we need them to do, which is, setting the poles perfectly and putting the trusses on perfectly and whatnot. So, yeah, we could, if the boys want to rally and do a lot of work, then we could do a lot of work ourselves.
Yeah,
And I'd be willing to help and share my expertise and all that.
Mhm.
I laid the tube in the floor, and when it came time after the concrete was poured, we had Greg Cardinal coming in there, sweat soldering these humongous copper pipes that were like over 1 inch in diameter. And Norm Tesmer drew out how I should do the tubing in the floor, as you guys probably know. So I don't know, I guess if the boys want to do a lot of work, we can do a lot of work. And we have to explore that option.
yeah, for sure.
need a vaccine shot.
Yeah,
We'll get together again.
Yeah.
Or Corona, I guess Corona kills it too. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, I'm still upright, and I do have a Corona every other day.
I was hoping this new Glarus,
Oh, there you go, from Wisconsin.
the fat squirrel would kill it.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
No.
That squirrel, huh?
Cool.
I was going to bring some Corona over to Jerry Charoux for the build session, because we got to keep everybody healthy over there.
All right.
You gotta test your sense of taste on a regular basis.
Yep. Make sure you still taste and smell.
Yeah.
All right.
Good night,
All right.
folks.
Good
Good
night,
night, folks.
You guys,
Yep.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
here, Ed.